Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. In summary, my concerns about the LED street lights are fourfold. Firstly, the blue light produced by the white LED street lights can damage the retinal cells. Secondly, LED street lights pose a health danger by suppressing melatonin. Thirdly, many of the LED street lights incorporate the microwave transceivers into the system, and thereby exposing us to higher levels of microwave. And fourthly, LED street lights can be a source of dirty electricity, which can cause health effects. In 2011, the Agency for Research on Cancer classified microwave radiation as a possible carcinogen. Since then, further research has come to light, and there are calls to upgrade the classification to a proven carcinogen, Group 1. And it therefore does not make sense to allow additional microwave exposure in our population if it can be avoided. You will see on the overhead projection the fact that microwave radiation may damage the DNA, and you will see on the left-hand picture there is a control showing cells that have been exposed to no radiation or microwave. You will see the center image shows the effect of ionizing radiation, and you will notice that there is a tail, a comet tail, to the right hand side of the image, and that indicates DNA breakages and chromosomal aberrations. But you'll notice that, and that central image is the ionizing radiation to the equivalent of 1,600 chest x-rays. But you'll see the image on the right hand side is the effect of non-ionizing radiofrequency, which is equivalent of 24 hours of mobile phone exposure. And you can see that there is also a very similar and analogous abnormality indicating that radiofrequency can also damage DNA. And it's a very important, very useful piece of science. Personally, I have significant question marks about using street lighting, which produces a class 2B carcinogen, and possibly worse. There is certainly international concern about the health effects of LED lights with microwave radiation transmission capacity. One such example was in the British town of Gateshead, where the local residents reported a number of significant health problems following the installation of the new state-of-the-art LED street lights fitted with microwave transmitters. And the health effects that they suffered from included insomnia, nosebleeds, miscarriages and stillbirths. There is an article here which you might like to have a look at, which details that humanitarian crisis in Gateshead. I've also provided a link that you can look up for further details with respect to that Gateshead situation. There's not only international concern, but there's also international medical concern about the health and safety effects from LED lighting systems. And I've provided a reference for you from the American Medical Association indicating that there are potential road hazards and health problems. one of the concerns is that the newer, colder blue lights create a more intense nighttime glare than the more conventional lighting systems, and their concerns were that the newer lights caused a decrease in visual acuity, and there was also the potential for safety issues with road hazards, particularly when the newer lights are reflected off wet, shiny roads. One of the other things that the American Medical Association has detailed is the important effect on melatonin hormone, and you'll be aware that melatonin is produced in the pineal gland, and it regulates our wakefulness and sleepiness in humans. That the most important thing to get hold of is that if you impair melatonin synthesis, then you will have very poor, interrupted, poor quality sleep, which is essential for restoration of body health and repair during the night as you sleep. There was an interesting situation where a young father with a 12-year-old autistic boy noticed significant behavioural problems in his son a short time after new LED lights were inserted very close to the family home, I think approximately 15 metres, and within a very short time his behaviour was extremely problematic, both at school with dangerous and disruptive behaviour, and also self-harm. Interestingly, those behaviours did settle once the family moved, and within a very short time, perhaps 3 weeks after that. And I've left a reference for that situation for you. There is also international concern that the new blue LED lights can irreparably damage the cells in the eye's retina. But I should say this is not the first time that that problem has been identified. Previously also noted with the fluorescent bulbs which emit UV lights. There is some recently published paper showing the increased risk of breast and prostate cancer for residents living too close to LED street lights, and it would appear that the blue colder lights are the problematic ones, and I've left a reference there for you for that for that finding. One of the lead authors of that study, Dr. Alejandro Sanchez de Miguel, is quoted as saying, quote, "As towns and cities replace older lighting, we're all exposed to higher levels of blue light, which can disrupt our biological clocks. It's imperative that we know for sure whether this increases our risk of cancer. Scientists have long suspected this may be the case. Now our innovative findings indicate a strong link." End of quote. I provided a full link for this for their research evaluating the association between artificial lighting and night lighting and breast and prostate cancer risk in Spain. Added to the prestigious voices bringing concern was the New Zealand Royal Society paper released in 2018 on blue light, indicating that there is definitely a potential health problem with the newer blue lights, and I have left a reference for you to access. The question is, the emerging data showing an association between residents close to LED lighting and increased cancer. Is this surprising? And the answer is not really, because we know that blue lights inhibit melatonin synthesis, and that in itself is a risk factor for cancer. We also know that many of the LED lights have microwave transmitters that can also produce radiation, which can further suppress melatonin levels and is also known to produce free radicals and cause oxidative stress. Both of those metabolic conditions increase the risk of cancer and certainly can damage DNA. We also know that LED street lights can produce dirty electricity, and you might say, well, what does that mean, and what is that about? It refers to the high frequency spikes and transients that are a contaminant of most electricity systems. And one source of dirty electricity is the switching mode, which power supplies are present in many devices that are needed to convert AC, that's alternating current, to DC current. And basically that's the form of switching mechanism that helps to power our computers, fridges, compact fluorescent light tubes, and also our newer LED lights. And unfortunately, exposure to dirty electricity is a feature of modern life. It's generated in our homes through our appliances, and it travels around our household wiring, radiates out into our living spaces, and it can certainly create an unhealthy home environment. Dirty electricity can be measured, and it enters our homes via the national grid, especially if there are sources of dirty electricity in the vicinity of the home or your business. So it's something very important to be aware of. You also need to know that it's possible to engineer the dirty electricity out of our power system, and yeah, it's possible to find solutions to that. Certainly, testing and the work by Professor Samuel Millam has shown that domestic LED lights can be a significant source of dirty electricity. I've left a reference there for his journal article. The exposure to dirty electricity can have a significant effect on humans and animals. And Samuel Millam has shown very nicely that exposure to LED lights with dirty electricity has been able to drop the milk production in a 550 dairy herd by 2,170 kilograms per day for the 3 days that the lights were installed. And that milk production returned to normal when the normal incandescent lights were used instead. They also discovered that when lights that had dirty electricity filtered out of them were also used in the milking shed, the milk production for the cows returned to normal. Also, most importantly, they discovered that patients who used a tanning bed with new LED lights for the UV light had a measurable increase in their body current. And this is very significant because it has been found that tanning bed users have a significantly increased risk of cutaneous, that is skin, melanoma. And it's a very important area of active research, because it's now known that there are more melanoma cases among indoor workers on the areas of skin not exposed to sunlight than outdoor workers. And there is a very strong possibility that this risk of melanoma is related to the dirty electricity. There is, for those of you who are not electricians and not familiar with physics, I have included a screenshot of Millam's paper, and you'll see that the red sinusoidal wave is the normal 50 Hertz electricity, and the blue scribbles that you see on the oscilloscope, that is the dirty electricity that I'm talking about, as it shows up on a meter, on an oscilloscope meter. And it is possible to measure the levels of dirty electricity. It is possible to also eliminate dirty electricity from the lighting system. And further to that, there was a very interesting case in America, in California, of a school at La Quinta Middle School, where there was 137 teachers in that school during the time from 1988 to 2005, and there was a significant high number of those teachers developed cancer. I think the paper shows 18 cancers out of 137, and the odds ratio for that is extremely significant when compared with other schools and other teaching groups. When they then went into the school to investigate, they found that there were very high levels of dirty electricity, and it is very likely that those high voltage transients were one of the significant contributing factors for this cluster of cancer in these unfortunate teachers. I spend my time looking after patients and the living, but you might spare a thought if you're interested in the insect life and perhaps bird life in your area, that there is certainly an effect on insects, including moths, when the street light colour changes. It would appear that the whiter light is very attractive to night insects, and they are also very, very sensitive to that spectrum. And it appears that they would just fly around the light until they become totally exhausted and die. So if you want to get rid of some insects, you might use some bright blue street lights. But if you're worried about the health effects, using insects as an early warning mechanism for what might happen to us humans, then you might want to pause and consider the issues involved. There are some researchers have looked at the more than 2,000 moth species, and definitely there appears to be adverse effects from the LED street lights. And I've left some references there for you to consider. I appreciate time's getting on. I'd just like to summarise then. The production of blue and white light by LED lighting devices takes less electricity to produce the blue photons of light than the red-yellow photons, and that's why it saves power. The problem is that much of the blue light that is produced is not visible to our eyes, but nonetheless has potential health problems. So in summary then, in this short presentation, I've tried to cover the fact that the white LED streetlights are a health and safety hazard for several reasons. Firstly, they can create nighttime glare and therefore be a traffic hazard, particularly when the roads are wet. Secondly, the blue light emissions from the white LED streetlights can cause damage to the retina of the eye. Thirdly, the blue light emissions from these streetlights can suppress melatonin production and thereby increase the risk of some cancers, as well as contributing to poor sleep, which in itself is a further risk factor for some cancers and poor health. Fourthly, the wireless transmitters that are used for these new lighting systems can also have the potential to increase cancer risk for people living nearby. And lastly, these new streetlights have the potential to be a source of dirty electricity, which can also increase the cancer risk for residents. And I need not remind you, of course, that your public duty is not only to save money through using less electricity, but also to consider the safety and health of your residents and ratepayers. My recommendations then would be that you would institute an immediate moratorium on the installation of LED streetlights and in other public places, including parks and so on. Secondly, I would respectfully suggest that you disable the wireless capacity of any LED lights that have already been installed to prevent unnecessary exposure to potentially carcinogenic microwave radiation to the nearby residents and workers. Thirdly, I would recommend that you undertake testing of the existing LED lights to look at the dirty electricity profile. There are certainly some brands and models which can be used which limit or reduce the amount of dirty electricity produced. And certainly, lastly, if you can identify safe brands and models of LED lights, then I would also strongly urge you to look at the possibility of lights which have a more yellow, softer light, if at all possible and if available, as these may be much less harmful to our insect populations. Of course, you'd need to do a testing to confirm or reject this hypothesis. So, in conclusion then, once again, I'm very grateful for your time to be able to speak to you. It is clear that LED streetlights are being marketed as environmentally friendly and energy saving and smart by their proponents, but like many new technologies, there are health and safety aspects which need to be thoroughly investigated before you spend time and money in changing to a new lighting infrastructure. It doesn't seem smart to me to introduce technology which can negatively impact on wildlife and certainly the potential to make people sick. Thank you.